All right, let's talk about the Washington Huskies for a second. We talked about that offense a lot. Let's talk about the Washington defense. And Texas will have a significant advantage against that Washington pass defense. And in terms of their pass defense, and we talked about this, they're 122nd in the country in pass defense, allowing 263. Basically, they're on the same level of U of H in pass defense. Like U of H was like 118th in pass defense. Their rush defense, though, they're actually one of the better run defenses in the country. They're 40th overall in rush defense. I think Iowa State, I think, was right around there. Iowa State's probably 38th, right around 35 or something like that in rush defense. So think about Iowa State, which is probably the best rush defense in the Big 12. Other than Texas, so that was a decent rush defense. Texas still ended up running for 100, having a 100-yard rusher in that game with C.J. Baxter against Iowa State. That was on the road. So you start looking at the two best rush defenses that Texas played outside of this Washington team who they'll face. It'll probably be Iowa State and Alabama. If you go, I think those will probably be the two best rush defenses Texas play. If you look at it statistically, and interestingly enough, Texas closed both of those games out with the run game on the road, right away from home, which is what I kind of like about that in that comparison. They like to stop. They like to stop the run. They force teams into second and long, third and long, get you behind the chains, and their third down defense isn't great, but they are an opportunistic secondary. I like their secondary because they're long, rangy, and athletic. They can be exposed. We just talked about their pass defense overall. But Jabbar Muhammad, who is kinfolk with Malik Muhammad, I believe he's actually cousins, second cousin, something like that, with Malik Muhammad. He's their best cover guy. Got 3 interceptions on the season, got 12 PBUs. He's a really good player, 5'10", 5'11". Their secondary is long. Other than him, their secondary is really long. Michelle Powell is about 6'1", 200. He's got 3 interceptions on the season. They got 16 interceptions on the season. One of their really elite traits as a team is that they're opportunistic. They make a lot of plays on the football. They're top 10 in interceptions in the country with 16. I think Texas actually has 16 interceptions too. So they make plays on the ball. Thaddeus, they got another player, I believe it's Thaddeus Drew. He's a long player, 6'1", 192. Elijah Johnson, 6'1", 190. I mean, you're talking about long athletes. And they're really, like I said, they're really opportunistic. Dominique Hampton is probably the best safety they have. He's one of the leading tacklers on the team too. He's 6'3". 200, 215, 220. So they're long, and that's why they end up making a lot of plays on the football. I just think teams underestimate their length and how rangy this group is. And once they get you behind the chains, though, and get you in predictable passing situations, they do a lot of simulated pressures on defense. Remember, we talked about this earlier in the
Yep.
season. Simulated pressure looks like a blitz, smells like a blitz, feels like a blitz, sounds like a blitz, but it ain't a blitz. They're actually sending 3 or 4 guys. You just don't know which 3 or 4 they're sending, and that is going to usually confuse the pass protection of the offensive line because they don't know where the pressure is coming from, and it looks like it's a blitz, and they make a blitz adjustment with the pass protection. Then it's only a 3 or 4 man pressure, and you can win the numbers advantage on the back end. And that's what they like to do a lot of, and they run simulated pressures at a top 10 rate in the Power 5. So they run them a lot. And Texas offensive line at times has had issues with simulated pressure. Saw it early in the season versus Rice. Saw it last season. Saw it versus Iowa State, actually. Or that first half versus Iowa State. They ran some sim pressures. I think Texas will be ready for it because you see it so much on film with Washington. But that's what they like to do. They want to stop the run on early downs so they can put you in predictable passing situations, and then they can make plays on the football. Got a really opportunistic secondary, long and rangy, and they'll run those simulated pressures. They don't put a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterback. That's they. If you look at sacks, they are 111th in sacks. Tackles for loss, they were 57th in tackles for loss. Where they do have, I'm saying an advantage, but they do have assets in pass rush or Braylon Trice. He's going to be a first round pick, and if he's not a first round pick, then some team will be giddy to get him at the top of the second round. He's the real deal. He's a defensive end, and they know about him because PK recruited him, 6'4", 275. You got to worry about that dude. They got to block him. If they find a way to block him consistently, then Texas will have no problem having their way with this Washington pass defense, considering all the weapons they have. But he's got 49 pressures in the last 5 games. Think about that. He's damn near averaging 10 pressures per game. He's got 68 pressures on the season. He had 70 pressures last season, led college football in pressures last season. Had a game against Washington State last year. We had 18 pressures in one game. Hell, he had 16 pressures versus Stanford this season in one game. That dude is a dude. They got to make sure that he is blocked. They do that, and I think they'll be able to have a lot of success in the passing game. And also, we talked about this, Zach Durfee. Zach Durfee, the transfer, defense from Sioux Falls. Apparently, Brock Hewitt said he is also a dude. Transfer hasn't been available because he hasn't been cleared by the NCAA until now. He is cleared, and Brock Hewitt says Kalen DeBoer told him he will be a force in the semifinal.
Well, that gives you edge rushers coming from both sides if that's the case. And I'd say this for everybody throwing out the stat you just did, that Washington, their pass defense is 121st. So let's not forget they faced 3 of the top 5 pass offenses in the country.
That's true.
With Oregon, Washington State, and Southern California, USC, and they faced 5 of the top 15 if you go down to Colorado and to Arizona. So they played some of the best pass offenses in the country.
Great point,
and they still won the game.
That's a great point.
They still won the game.
Yeah, which means they will not be shocked by the skill and speed of Texas on the outside of wide receiver, because now they see it in practice, number one, because they got a really good wide receiver core. But like you said, they've seen some of the best pass offenses in the country.
Found a way to win the game. That's the key. Because if you go to passing offense in the country, Washington's number 1, followed by Oregon, Washington State, LSU, and USC. So
is it bad defense out there, or are they just great? Texas, but you're right, that's the best quarterback conference in the country.
Sure it is. And number 6 and 7 on that list are Oklahoma and TCU, which is
that's as close as you get in terms of what Texas pass defense has seen, and in terms of something similar to what Washington will do.
Styles make fights. This is a good fight. I mean,
Texas
will struggle. They'll give up some points, I believe. But Texas is going to be able to score points too, and that's what we know from Washington. They're not going to completely shut you down.
No way.
And Texas will be able to shut down teams this year who are run-based and force them to become passing teams when they don't want to. This team wants to pass. So Washington, number 1 in the country in passing with Michael Penix.